The time of OCGs was, of course, the 90s. Many groups appeared then, many of which were either destroyed as a result of fighting with each other, or some were helped to disappear by law enforcement agencies. Few organized crime groups survived into the 2000s, but those that managed to survive that long became almost legends. This applies to the famous Shchelkovskaya OCG. This criminal group appeared in the mid-90s. It was located in the Moscow region in the Shchelkovo district, known for its high-profile cases, mainly murders. The creator of the group is Basmach. The real name is Alexander Matusov, a well-known criminal authority. In the very early 90s, Basmach was a member of the Izmailovo OCG, but then decided to separate and form his own gang. The basis of the group consisted of residents of the Moscow region, in particular the village of Biokombinat, which is located in the Shchelkovsky district. The leader himself also lived here. The leaders of the newly formed organized crime group were Pegasus, Igor Rozhnev, previously convicted, and Boldaris, Pavel Bondartskov. What the group did? The Shchelkovo OCG, immediately after its foundation, tried to establish power over many commercial facilities in the Shchelkovo area. Naturally, conflicts and disputes with other groups began to appear. But, unlike their competitors, the Shchelkovo did not have long conversations, did not score arrows, and preferred to just immediately physically eliminate other gangsters. The group began to informally rule in the village of Biokombinat. Even law enforcement officers feared them there. In nearby neighborhoods, the bandits engaged in extortion and robbery. One of the well-known crimes of the OCG was committed in 1996. In the fall, in the village of Sverdlovsky, members of the group, who were rivals of the Shchelkovsky, people named Zarubin, Kashirsky, Aksenov, and Parkomenko, gathered in a cafe. They were seen by Braznikov, a member of the Shchelkovo OCG, who was vacationing there. He notified his boss, Bondartskov. He gathered the fighters, and they all drove up to the cafe, armed with knives and firearms. They decided not to organize a massacre in the establishment, but waited for their competitors at the exit. At that time, Aksionov was able to fight back and run away. He was shot and wounded in the back. Zarubin and Baldaris continued the fight at this time, and, despite the fact that the car was completely shot at with firearms, they were not injured. Altogether, this beating lasted about an hour. Already the signals of police cars were heard as the bandits left the scene of the skirmish. Zarubin and Aksenov survived. The former received security, but he refused to say the names of the attackers. Aksenov was badly wounded and was in hospital. This was reported to the Shchelkovo OCG bandits by one of the hospital employees. The doctor led the bandits there, and they shot Aksenov through the window. After a while, the Shchelkovskaya OCG became very famous in the criminal world. It was now known as one of the most violent, but executive. For this reason, they began to be approached to perform contract murders. In addition, they specialized in the kidnapping of various entrepreneurs and even other representatives of criminals. Shchelkovsky took almost all such orders, but most often only in the suburbs or in Moscow. Sometimes they took on work in other Russian regions. With the groups of the Leningrad region, the Shchelkovo gangs were mostly cooperating, if not friends. They were in constant contact with the Kingisepp OCG, in particular with its leader, the criminal mastermind Sergei Finagny. They even began to do business together. The friendship expanded, and the groups even began to share orders for murders and provided services to each other. When there was no common work, they shababashed together, kidnapped merchants, and sometimes even authority figures. The target was sought by representatives of the Kingisepp organized crime group, but the kidnapping was done by the Shchelkovskys. They forced people into cars and kidnapped them under the guise of police officers' actions. If it was necessary to find someone in the Leningrad region or St. Petersburg, the group of the Shchelkovskys turned to the Kingisepp ones. Having kidnapped the person, they would hand him over to another gang, which would massacre him and dispose of the body. If the Kingisepskys came to Moscow, they were assisted by the Shchelkovskys. In total, the Shchelkovskaya OCG committed about 60 murders, some controversial, between the 1990s and 2000s. They could kill not only enemies, competitors, but also members of their own group if they had a reason to do so. The Shchelkovskayas also committed quite a few crimes that excited the public. Among them was the attempted assassination of Yuri Bushev in 2002, the founder of Bashneft. The order for his elimination came from the Kingisepp group, which enlisted the help of the Shchelkovo group. A member of the group started to plant a mine in the businessman's trunk, but it suddenly exploded, killing the gang member. The second attempt to kill the businessman took place in 2004, which also caused a resonance. Then the executor of the order was Alexander Pumane, a former submarine officer. He had a mine-based bomb in his trunk. He was supposed to plant it under Bushev's car. But the bandit was stopped by the police, and they, having found the bomb, thought he was a terrorist. During interrogation, the bandit was severely beaten, from which he died. By the way, it was this case that led the law enforcement agencies to the Kingisepp ones. Many of the participants were identified and subsequently detained, but the Shchelkovskys managed to hide further. Basmach and his group hid from the attention of law enforcement agencies for more than 10 years, and all this time, the authorities practically did not touch them. The end of the criminal group. In 2006, a businessman approached the Moscow UBOP and said that he had suffered from the Shchelkovo organized crime group. Allegedly, he owed money to one of its leaders, but was unable to pay it back in time. He was kidnapped and told that he would be killed anyway. The businessman convinced the bandits to remove the handcuffs and managed to escape, after which he went straight to the police. As a result, Rozhnev, one of the leaders of the Shchelkovskys, was put on the wanted list. In 2009, a case was opened against other members of the group. Another OCG leader, Matusov, was also put on the wanted list. In 2011, 5 members of the Shchelkovskys were charged with illegal possession of firearms, murder, and other crimes. Bondartskov, who was one of the gang's founders, received 19 years in prison, while Rozhnev received 15 years. Other members of the gang received various terms, from 7 to 14 years. The gangsters hired good lawyers to appeal the sentences. As a result, Boldaris received 15 years, Rozhnev 14 years, the total term of the latter 21 years, taking into account the sentence in the Kingisepp case. Some of the participants were limited to suspended sentences. In 2014, Matusov, the escaped leader of the Shchelkovo organized crime group, was found in Thailand. He was detained by local police and brought to Russia. He was immediately taken into custody, but Matusov was acquitted by a jury. Based on this, the Moscow Regional Court in 2017 fully acquitted the leader and main creator of the Shchelkovo organized crime group.